Hello everybody, this is Timothy Mark with Alexandria.
How's everybody today?
And we are a Tickle Chunk of Horrors. We are also World Paranormal Research Society. And we are also a Judeo-Christian community called Mules for the Lord. And I preach for Mules for the Lord. And what I would like to say is today, this is a show that we originally was not going to do. Didn't come to mind until after we listened to another person's show, and they really just got it wrong, man. And they basically said the Dybbuk, because today's show is on the Dybbuk and the Dybbuk box. They said that the Dybbuk is not a Jewish thing, and that's what that. But let me this person who ran the other podcast show would have researched that, he would have realized that the Dybbuk comes from Jewish folklore and Jewish mythology. And so, what a very uneducated, stupid thing for somebody who's supposed to be a religious person to say. And I do want to send out a message to this person who I'm not going to name. You and your co-host sound like complete stupidity. Definitely just breathed and smelled and reeked of ignorance through the whole podcast, basically.
Yeah, and I mean,
and I'm gonna say this, because one of the things that they brought up was on the stupid Ghost Adventures crew show, where Zach Bagans did not use the EMF detector or the EVP recorder, and this guy who hosts this other show came out and said, well, the reason why he didn't use the things because the cameras would have given such a high reading, and it just wouldn't work. Here's the problem with that. The problem with that is we're going to educate you with facts today, and we're not going to educate you with opinion and mindless stupidity. And the same channel, the Travel Channel, who does Ghost Adventures Crew, actually does another paranormal show that's a live paranormal show. It would stand to reason that they're probably using the same cameras. So I'm really not buying the Ghost Adventures Crew. The one thing that they've always catch is not a lot of visual. They've always caught EVPs. And the fact that they did not, during the live show, carry the recorders with them or the EMF detectors as much as they do in every pre-recorded show, cast doubt on any of their past episodes and evidence. And this person, who's supposed to be a religious leader in the community, is now sucking up to television producers and basically selling his soul and forgetting who he's supposed to be. You were selected for the show originally because of who you portray yourself to be. And now you're turning it around. You're losing sight of serving God. Now you're trying to become an entertainer. And I'm just so disappointed. I've had respect for this person. Now I've actually lost it after listening to the most stupid podcast show that I've ever heard. I wish I would have never heard the show, because I've lost respect for this guy completely. So anyway, whatever. Yeah, go.
I think for me, I mean, I'm a historian, and in that particular field, facts and documentation is so very important. And I was very, very disappointed with the Ghost Adventures live show, and then hearing this subsequent show in regards to trying to do damage control in regards to what happened in the show, and just hearing some very misinformed, uneducated comments going out over the airways.
It was intentional. It wasn't misinformed. I mean, this guy intentionally has his head between Zach Bagans' crotch. That is so much that he's trying to gain a television show, even though he's trying to say, "Oh, I'm not." And I know that if you can see how Alexandria is looking at me right now, you would understand that she did not like me saying that, because we did have respect for this person. And now I've lost it because he's betraying people, and he's betraying who he's supposed to be. Stay in your lane, man. Do what you're supposed to do, and the producers will come to you. You can remove your head from Zach Bagans' crotch, remove it, and just do what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a religious leader. Be that leader, friend. Be that leader. I'm so aggravated at this guy right now. But what we're going to hit you with today, because today's show's on the Dybbuk box and the Dybbuk, what we're going to hit you on is facts, folks. And that show did not hit you with it at all. They at least, I listened to at least, 30 minutes of it. Everything I heard was crap and garbage. I could not get through the whole show. And so, but today we're giving you facts, folks. And I am a Judeo-Christian preacher, and we are going to talk about the Dybbuk is from the Jewish faith, is from Jewish mythology, is from Jewish folklore. And this person said that it wasn't. And, you know, I question this person's integrity and credibility now as far as what he's supposed to be. And so now I'm just real aggravated. But we're going to talk about the Dybbuk now. And what I would like to start off by saying about the Dybbuk is that in Jewish mythology, okay, the Dybbuk is a malicious possessing spirit believed to be the dislocated soul of a dead person. It supposedly leaves the host body once it has accomplished its goal, sometimes after being helped. That's one version in Jewish mythology. That is the version that you'll see written about on many websites, including Wikipedia. But there is also other visions of the Dybbuk being demonic. And so, and you know, let's look at what the Dybbuk is in history. In history, the Dybbuk actually appears in Jewish writings as early as the 16th century. And so when we look at that, we look at, you know, you talk about the possession, the account that was given by Josephus. It was a demonic possession rather than that by ghosts. And so, as again, the Dybbuk can be that of a dead person trying to accomplish a goal, or it can be that of a demonic spirit. And so, how can one in Jewish folklore and Jewish mythology, how can one get a Dybbuk? Well, that can happen by improperly making religious objects, or it can happen if you doubt any miracles that God has made, including the miracle of Moses leading people through the Red Sea. If you doubt that, then you open your soul, your body, you open your body and your household and any objects around you open to demonic possession. And so that's very, very something to keep in mind, folks. We're feeding you fact. You can go online and check it out. We're not blowing smoke because we want a television gig and trying to protect somebody who royally screwed up in a live television show. We're giving you facts, folks.
And sort of to condense what Timothy has said, a Dybbuk is a restless, usually malicious spirit believed to be able to haunt and even possess the living. And I'm going to go into a little bit of the description of a Dybbuk box and let you sort of, you know, I'm going to be giving you some facts, and then you can compare them to some of the misinformation that is being currently thrown out in social media. And just for all of you out there that may not know this, the term Dybbuk box was first created and first used by Kevin Mannis.
Now, wait a minute. Now, I want to clarify this so people don't get confused. We're talking about who coined the phrase, not who first created the phrase. Who is known for, in popular culture, coining a phrase and creating a phrase, creating the name is two different things. And Kevin Mannis is a film producer and writer, whatever, that made a movie, who actually made the term popular, who bought the, if I'm not mistaken, he's the guy that bought the original Dybbuk box that was come out of Holocaust. And so
yeah, I was going to go into that. Kevin Mannis used this term to describe a wine cabinet in the item description that he used for an eBay auction, and as the subject of his original story describing paranormal events, which he attributed to this box. And again, as Timothy mentioned, he's a writer and a creative professional by trade. So that's actually key, him being a writer and creative professional by trade. And he actually owned a small antiques and furniture refinishing business in Portland, Oregon at that time. And according to his story, he bought the box at an estate sale in 2001, and it had belonged to a survivor of the Holocaust and German-occupied Poland named Havele. and who had escaped to Spain and purchased it there before her immigration to the United States.
Let me explain this now, because there was various different boxes that was used to contain a Dybbuk back in the days. Now we're talking about prior to this 2001 film producer saying that you just referred to the Holocaust, and these things were called boxes, but some of them were sewing boxes, some of them could have been cigar boxes, some of them could have been wine boxes, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, the one he bought was a wine box, but I don't remember.
It was a wine box, yeah, and he actually, when he heard that this box was a family heirloom, he actually offered to give the box back to the family, but the granddaughter insisted that he take it, and she stated, "We don't want it back." And she told him the box had been kept in her grandmother's sewing room and was never opened because a Dybbuk was said to live inside of it. And then when Manus opened the box, he wrote that he found that inside it contained 2 1920 pennies, a lock of blonde hair bound with a cord, a lock of black-brown hair bound with a cord, and a small statue engraved with the Hebrew word shalom.
Let me tell you this. Now, so Kevin Manus opened the box, something that Zach Bagans was too cowardly to do on the Ghost Adventures live show, which he advertised he would be doing. And so a lot of people tuned in for it. A lot of people were aggravated that he didn't open it. But my speculation is they were setting that up for a whole nother show, to maybe even a documentary. It was just a scam to get people to tune in to something else when everybody was watching nothing but commercials. We see that at least Kevin Manus opened the box.
Well, the interesting fact about Kevin Manus, I mean, again, he found the statue with the engraved shalom, also a small golden wine goblet, 1 dried rosebud, and a single candle holder, and 4 octopus-shaped legs. And we're going to go into numerous owners of the box have reported that strange phenomena accompanied it. In his story, Manus wrote that he experienced a series of horrific nightmares shared with other people while they were in possession of the box or when they stayed at his house while he had it. And his mother suffered a stroke on the same day he gave her the box as a birthday present, October 31st. So it's kind of strange how Manus would give the box to his own mother as a birthday present on October 31st.
Well, I think that has to do with people not understanding the Jewish myths and folklore, as they call it. But in the Jewish community, again, I am a Judeo-Christian preacher. In the Jewish community, there's something that's very seriously, people take the threat of the Dybbuk very seriously. And if you give it to a Christian person who doesn't have a strong faith in things of that nature, they're not going to take it as serious, and danger can come to them. And so, you know, there's precautions that need to be taken. And I think it was made more of a joke with Kevin Manus at that time, more than taken seriously.
Right, and then, you know, every owner has also mentioned that the owner of the box has reported that smells of cat urine or jasmine flowers and nightmares involving an old hag accompanying the box. And a student at Truman University in Kirksville, Missouri, and the last person to auction the box on eBay, claimed that the box caused lights to burn out in his house and his hair to fall out. And very, very interesting. And it's also interesting that this individual sold it to a Haxton, and Haxton wrote the Dybbuk box and claimed that he subsequently developed a strange health problems, hives, coughing up blood, and head-to-toe welts. And this Haxton consulted with rabbis trying to figure out a way to seal the divot in the box again. And apparently they were successful, that he took the freshly resealed box and hid it in a secret location. And he later donated the box to one of your now favorite people.
Yeah, no, not one of my favorite people at all. This, you know, I can tell you that sometimes people get caught up in the celebrity. When Ghost Adventurers first started, I believe that they were genuinely trying to conduct research, and he got caught up in the celebrity, and now it's nothing but a joke. And I do believe that some of the people that he's having around him, who's now trying to cover for him, they've nothing but a slave to his celebrity. And you know, it's very unfortunate that that's your God, and Zach Bagans is now your God. Travel Channel is now your God. Wanting a television show is now your God. But actually serving God and doing what got you on the show in the first place has fell back. And I'm very disappointed. And respect's been lost. Can respect be gained again? You know, if this person wants to change their ways, get back to doing what they're supposed to be doing, then yeah, respect can be gained again. But I mean, I listened to 30 minutes of crap when I listened to that show, that podcast that was supporting Zach, and they were both of the hosts on there were very uneducated, and to say that the cameras and EMF detector could not have been using because of the cameras, well, you don't have information on the new live paranormal show that's out where they're using EMF detectors. So, you know, and it's by the same network. But all I'll say is, yeah, it's just people who don't do their research. And so now, what I want to say is that Dybbuk, okay, is the fact, and I guess another reason I got so angry and decided to do this show was that when this guy said, well, it's not a Jewish thing at all, and that's why the rabbi did not know about it. Well, yeah, whatever, buddy. And so, you know, and that comment like sparked something in me where I know I had to do this show, because actually Dybbuk comes from a Hebrew word, and it means the act of sticking, and so or to adhere, to clean. And so, yeah, it's very bad that people out there misrepresenting themselves. And if you look at a 1937 film, I don't know if you had. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to talk about it in the film world, and if you think that the Dybbuk doesn't belong in Jewish culture or literature, you're going to be in for a surprise with this one. The Dybbuk is a 1937 Yiddish language Polish fantasy drama, and it's based on the play The Dybbuk by S. Ansky. And very, very interesting that in 1937 they would actually do this particular, the release date was September 26th, 1937. And again, going back even beyond that this film is based on, The Dybbuk, or Between Two Worlds, is a 1914 play by S. Ansky, and it's relating the story of a young bride possessed by a Dybbuk, a malicious possessing spirit believed to be the dislocated soul of a dead person on the eve of her wedding. And the Dybbuk is considered a seminal play in the history of Jewish theater, and also an important role in the development of Yiddish theater and theater in Israel. And
hold on, before you go past that, just let me tell a little bit about Ansky. Ansky was a Jewish author, playwright, and he did several plays on Jewish mythology and folklore. One of them happened to be The Dybbuk, or like you said, as The Dybbuk, or Between Two Worlds, which was done in 1914. And so this is something that comes as very Jewish thing. So when this guy who tried to take that from the Jewish people in his podcast show and say it's not a Jewish thing, that's why I'm doing this show, is because that aggravated me more than anything. Stay in your lane. If you don't know what you're talking about, stay in your lane, friend.
And it's very also interesting that this particular 1914 play by Ansky was based on years of research by Ansky, who traveled between Jewish, and I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce it, so I will spell it, Shetels, in Russia and Ukraine, documenting folk beliefs and stories of the Asiatic Jews. So he was doing years of research in regards to traveling between Russia and the Ukraine to get facts straight in regards to this particular play that is actually the film. And the subsequent film is generally considered one of the finest in the Yiddish language. And it's also interesting that the Dybbuk was filmed on location in Poland as well. So very, very interesting in regards to that play and then the subsequent 1937 film, folks.
So our whole point is to educate you, the listener, or you, the people, is to educate you on where the Dybbuk comes from, what the Dybbuk box is. The Dybbuk box is an item, and it could have been anything that was to contain the Dybbuk. And so it could have been a doll, could have been a box, could have been a ball, could have been anything. But yeah, it was specifically made to contain the demon or the malicious spirit or whatever. And so, you know, again, it is a Jewish thing. But I could see how somebody who calls himself a Catholic yet does not follow the mainstream Catholicism that's governed by the Pope. I could see how they could not, if they're not even secure in their own faith and their own Catholicism, I could see how they would definitely be off when it comes to my faith. And I think that you probably shouldn't have spoke on it because all you did was wake up the giant.
And another thing, too, we'll step back into more recent times. You may or you may not be familiar with the 2012 film, The Possession. And The Possession, in a nutshell, is when a couple's youngest daughter becomes strangely obsessed with an antique wooden box that they bought at a yard sale. And to their horror, they learn that the box contains a Dybbuk, a dislocated spirit that inhabits and ultimately devours a human host. So that was a 2012 film, The Possession, and it had a lot of big name people in that film. So if you're not sure what a Dybbuk is, or you may want to check out that The Possession film.
And let me just refer people to, because we're just not speaking out of our butts like some people. You can go to jewishvirtuallibrary.org, and they have the Dybbuk on there and what it means. And I'll read from it. It says, in Jewish folklore and popular belief, an evil spirit which enters into a living person, cleaves to his soul, causes mental illness, talks through his mouth, and represents a separate and alien personality is called a Dybbuk. The term appears neither in appears neither in literature nor in the Kabbalah, where this phenomenon is always called evil spirit. So that means it can be a non-evil spirit or an evil spirit. Okay? And so, and in the New Testament, it's referred to as an unclean spirit. Now, when we jump to the New Testament, of course, it's reaching, because now you're talking about the Christianity side. But I am a Judeo-Christian, so I'm the best of both here, Judeo and Christianity. And so that's what a Judeo-Christian is. So I can use both the Old and New Testament. But the New Testament is referred to as a unclean spirit. And the term was first introduced into literature only in the 17th century from the spoken language of German and Polish. Now we're talking about from the spoken language of German and Polish Jews, but it was in literature prior to that as early as the 16th century. And so now when you go into German and Polish Jews, which is important there, is because the Dybbuk box, is the most famous Dybbuk box that people are understanding when you think of Dybbuk box, is the one that came out of the Holocaust in Poland there.
And it's also interesting to make note, and you may want to think about this statement and ponder it, but skeptic Chris French, who is actually the head of a research unit at Goldsmiths College actually told an interviewer, and this is food for thought and may be quite valid. He told an interviewer that he believed that the box's owners were already primed to be looking out for bad stuff. And it's around the same philosophy. If you believe you've been cursed, then inevitably you explain the bad stuff that happens to you in the terms of what you perceive to be the cause. So I think a lot of people had the misconception they were already primed or already revved up to be looking out for anything that was bad pertaining to the Dybbuk box, and were really setting themselves up or over vamping themselves. I don't know if that makes sense. It certainly makes sense to me.
Now let me tell you now, when we were talking about earlier reports of the Dybbuk, now you have the Dybbuk and the Dybbuk box, okay? The Dybbuk is the actual spirit. The box is what contains the spirit and keeps it from coming out, okay? And so when you look at the fact that in 1560, several detailed reports, we're talking about the year 1560, several detailed reports in Hebrew and Yiddish on the deeds of the Dybbuk and their testimonies about themselves were preserved and published. So there's a wealth of material out there on the Dybbuk as early as the 1560s, and you could definitely, again, I would refer to the Jewish Virtual Library .org to get into that, get more knowledge on it and see it for your own eyes. Never take anybody's advice. Let me put it to you this way: all that glitters is not gold. All that wears a white collar is not a priest or a Catholic or a good Catholic. So just because somebody wears the garments does not make them holy. Let's understand that.
And I really, there's been a lot of...
Well, hold on. So let's look at some other stuff. In 1903, okay, special booklets on the exorcisms of the famous spirits which took place in the Koretz have also been published. So we're talking about exorcisms of the Dybbuks, and this happened in Baghdad. There were several exorcisms of the Dybbuks, and they were written about in 1903. So let's educate ourselves, folks, and know that Zach Bagans did not invent the word. Okay, it came way before him. And so, I mean, I'm just tired of. I'm really aggravated. Maybe y'all can hear it out there, but I'm sick of what I heard earlier from two clowns. So
this goes back into, I know that all over at one time in social media or the internet, they were offering haunted Dybbuk boxes for sale, and it seems like as of later, when the story broke, that Dybbuk boxes were all the rage within the paranormal community, or at least just all over the internet. And it says that one quotation was, "It's one of the most haunted items in the entire world." I really don't think I would go as far to say it's one of the most haunted items in the world, because certainly I can't see that, and I'm not quite sure on where that, so I mean, for publicity, you would certainly, say that. And I know in 2003, Dybbuk boxes were a hot commodity on places like eBay and Etsy, where people were trying to cash in on what was happening in regards to, even when Sam Raimi did the 2012 film, people were trying to cash in. And some of these boxes on either eBay or Etsy were from $40 to $400+. And, what a hoax, or what, this is just on the tailspins of a particular item that everybody was trying to get in on, selling your own or making a Dybbuk box and selling it.
Yeah, let me also explain to people out there, okay? Like I said, everything that glitters is not gold, and all that wears a white collar is not a priest. And so let me tell you, also anybody out there that calls himself a rabbi is not the be-all, end-all to Judaism. And I'm going to say that because if you look into Judaism, okay, there are several, it's kind of like Christianity. When you have Christianity, you have several different types of Christianity, and they may not all believe in the same things, and they may not all agree with the same things, okay? In Judaism, you have Orthodox Jews, you have conservative Jews, and you have Reform Jews, and you have Reconstructionist Jews. And so when you look at and that's just a few of them. You have also, when you go look at Orthodox, you have ultra-Orthodox, and there's more than that. And so with a lot of these newer versions of Jews out there, a lot of them don't understand or haven't studied the Kabbalah or have not studied Jewish mysticisms. They became a rabbi out of just, hey, that was something for them to do, you know, and that's their path in life, what they wanted to do, but they really don't know everything about Judaism. So it's kind of like if you go up to a, let's say if you go up to a Baptist and you start asking them things about Catholicism, they're not going to know everything. And actually, if you go up to a Catholic priest, he's probably not going to know everything that, because even you, but with your family, you have a Roman Catholic and a Ukraine Orthodox Catholicism, two different people in your family doing two different Catholicisms, and they're going to have two different versions on how things go. And so if this rabbi had never heard of the Dybbuk or the Dybbuk box, then that means that it was not a student of the Kabbalah, or not a student of Jewish mysticism or folklore or anything of that nature. And so, which leads me to believe that even though he did speak with the politicians and pray for the politicians, everybody that holds a prayer service is not the know-all be-all, and so everything's researchable. Yeah.
And you know, I think the purpose of what we're really trying to get through to our listeners out there is that, you know, after this particular show aired, there's been division between the camps of who hate it and who, you know, are just going to be fans no matter what. But we're trying to give you factual information about the Dybbuk, factual information about the Dybbuk box. Yes, divots exist, and yes, there was a particular Dybbuk box at times.
It's more than one box. What I want to get through to people is that there's one box that's became famous, but you got to realize in the history of Judaism, in the history of the Jewish faith, there's been many Dybbuk boxes and many Dybbuk containers, or it could be objects or whatever, things to hold Dybbuks, and that's just part of the exorcism process. And so let me tell you that, and I'm going to speak now to the guy, maybe he's cut it off now, who probably started off listening to this. I don't know if he's still listening. If you are listening, you know I respected you, but now you losing your way, your path, and I want to reach out to you from preacher to, you know, you're supposed to be a religious leader. I don't really understand what your job or practice is anymore, and I would just want to say, get back to doing what you were doing. I can gain respect back, but I can't gain respect when you're seeking out something that you're telling people that you're not seeking out, which is a television show, and that is what it is. And if you were really serious about the Catholic faith, why is it that you started your own version of it? But anyway, I'm like I say, I had respect for this guy. I listened to the show, something that they tried to take from the Jewish people, which is, you shouldn't have did it. So.
And you know, we're going to step back more into popular culture. In 2017, there was a movie, Ezra, which revolves around a Dybbuk box with references to Kabbalistic traditions and occultism. So there's been a lot of mention. There's also the Dybbuk was featured as the main antagonist in the horror film The Unborn in 2009. And it's even interesting in Love and Death, Woody Allen's 1975 satire of Russian literature. Boris flirts with Sonia, who is with the fishmonger, is set to marry, and then it talks about they go into fiance keeps getting in the way of Boris's advances, which leads him to ask Sonia this question in the film: did you have to bring the Dybbuk? So Woody Allen mentioned that in his 1975 film. And A Serious Man opens with a story about a couple who suspect that the rabbi they're hosting for dinner is a Dybbuk. So many mentions in regards.
The whole point that she's saying all that is because there's a lot of uninformed people that believe that Zach Bagans invented the word Dybbuk box. And that's, I don't know, man, these people. But, you know, my whole thing is she's pointing out all the media and films and things that's been made before that's talked about Dybbuk. And even before that, when you go back to the year 1560, you look at the writings where the Dybbuks are being exorcised. And so let's not hold off faith that exorcisms can only be done by a Catholic priest. And from my knowledge, a bishop and a priest are two different things. But, you know, and I don't know a lot about Catholicism. What I do know, I don't really agree with. And so I thought I had an understanding with this one individual. But, yeah, so
it's just interesting, too. And I'm going to step back into popular culture, and you may want to revisit a lot of these shows because it's interesting. In the episode of The Real Ghostbusters, Drool, the dog-faced goblin, the Ghostbusters discuss with Peter Venkman the many different forms of an antagonistic ghost they are facing can take, and with Egon Spengler mentioning a Dybbuk. And Peter asks Egon what a Dybbuk is, and Egon replying, it's best if he didn't know. And also I know my kids watched Rugrats, and Grandpa Boris tells a scary story to the babies involving a Dybbuk in the early episodes of Rugrats, which was a children's show. So very, very interesting in regards to what a Dybbuk is.
And we'll put some links in the description for the Jewish Virtual Library. Go on there, research it. And if you're a Christian and you're offended by the fact that I'm saying Jewish this, Jewish that, I'm a Judeo-Christian. And let me tell you something, you cannot be a Christian at all without recognizing your foundation of Christianity. The Old Testament is actually Judaism. And so there you go. Jesus Christ himself was a student and a rabbi of Judaism.
This may be an interesting book that you may want to inform yourself, and it's called Spirit Possession in Judaism, Cases and Context from the Middle Ages to the Present. And this is by Matt Goldish, published through Wayne State University. So you may want to educate yourself on regards to spiritual possession that have been documented in the Middle Ages to the present time that clearly mentions Dybbuks.
One thing I don't tolerate, and I know I've probably been hard on these two people who basically, you know, run a show, they do this and they do that, and they've done a lot of good in the community where they live. Yeah, I agree, they've done good there. But the thing is, they're losing their sight, and I have very little patience or very little tolerance for somebody who's representing themselves to be in the religious world and then making stupid comments. So you can't please everybody. One of the comments that he made on his podcast show was that, well, the Catholic faith fits in with everything. Well, no, it does not. And so, you know, he's trying to please everybody. And when somebody's trying to do that, it's oftentimes a form of greed or a form of a different motivation other than serving God. You can't please everybody. There's things that are sins, and you have to recognize that those are sins. And if you got to be the guy to call it out, then guess what? You're not going to be the popular guy out there for doing it, but you will be a servant of God. Like I say, I've lost respect for this guy. Hopefully you get back on track and I can gain respect back for you. But as of right now, I mean, I don't know what to say. Yeah.
I think the most important thing is that you're setting out to educate people, as you clearly state you are. Please make sure you're well-versed in the topic that you're trying to educate people on. Make sure your facts can be documented. You have reference points, because I really get upset when I have people out there that other people hold in such high esteem being fed misinformation. It can turn very deadly if you're saying mistruth, half-truth, just to please somebody else. Please, people, be yourself. And
well, it's pretty clear he was trying to protect the show because he wants his own show. So the goal should be serving God and spreading God's word and letting your light shine. And buddy, you're not doing it by lying on podcasts.
Well, I mean, I have to say, from my personal view, is that the show really was a complete flop. I managed to watch the whole thing, and I can tell you I was very disappointed. It really was nothing that, was worth watching. And if you're going to rev up or you're going to amp people up, you really got to produce the goods. And like I said, it was really not worth the watch. And there was a lot of people. There's a lot of strong opinions, yay, strong opinions, nay. And there was just so much bad attitude, bad karma in the show, and it really portrayed a lot of people in a very negative light, but it showed who they really were. I mean, the cameras couldn't hide it.
Anybody watching the show could tell that Zach and Aaron were overreacting like crazy. They were putting on a show. They were putting on a performance. And this guy that runs a podcast show was like, well, they're the real deal. They do investigations and they do it real, and that's just true. Well, duh. No, okay, they're putting on a show. They were trying to sell all them commercials. They're getting paid to do it. I believe at one time they were the real deal. And, man, I'm like, right now, man, this guy's got me pissed. But anyway, so, and I'm sure if I'm feeling this way about you, a lot of you other people are too. And buddy, you could be on your way out the way that you're acting, and you were on your way up. And so reevaluate yourself, man. Man, dude, I'm just aggravated with this person.
We're all on our own individual journeys to seek answers, but on our journey to seek these answers, we must be truthful, and we must, sometimes the truth is the hardest thing to swallow, and it may not be the popular path, but if you can portray yourself with honesty, integrity, professionalism, it's so good to be passionate. But if you
him and that dumb chick, whoever she is, I don't even know who she is.
If you become on your goal to be passionate, unprofessional, then maybe it's time to just check out.
Yeah, maybe you need to check out. And your co-host sucks, man. I mean, God, that's the most boring thing. You need another co-host, friend. Revamp it, start telling the truth, because you are representing yourself as a leader. I know people are probably getting tired of me saying that, but I hope we educated you on the Dybbuk today, and that's all I got to say about it. And man, here's a personal message to him. I'm pretty sure he's still listening, because that's what these people do. He's still hanging on there. But anyway, get you another co-host, friend, because the co-host you got sucks, man. She's a goofball, and both of y'all speak crap and uneducated crap.
Well, folks, it's been a real eye-opening show, and yeah, we may have stated items you may have not wanted to hear, but the facts are out there. The truth certainly is out there. I mean, you cannot always be in the in crowd, because sometimes the in crowd is on the way out. And very disturbing to see what happened in the show. I have not been able to watch the show since the live event. I really have. It's given me a different perspective on, and I've lost. Well,
even this podcast, this podcast with this guy. I mean, I don't even think I want to hear another one of these unless he can get back on track. We're one of the few people that were actually interested in talking with you. Not because you were on a Ghost Adventures crew, but because of what you did. And so everybody else, man, whether you want to believe it or not, they're only around you because you're just a stepping ladder to get closer to Zach for them. We don't even like Zach, so there you go. So we were actually into what you were doing. If you're gonna lose the true people out there that are really just trying to walk over you. Again, we had respect for you, but hopefully you can get back to doing the right thing and serving God and stop spreading BS.
And what we're trying to say, folks, is the right thing may not always be the popular thing, but certainly you can never be caught in a lie, and you can never be caught discredited.
Bye.